Okay guys, I have a completely random question for you. But earlier this week, I had a friend compare me to a white peach gin. Apparently that's better than a regular gin even. So he says it's a compliment and that it's a really good thing to be like a white peach gin. But as somebody who doesn't drink, I'm just trying to get some feedback. Do you guys think that that should be like on my resume? Is that something I should lead off with when I introduce myself? Like, hi, I'm Amy. I'm like a white peach gin. Let me know down in the comments below if you think my friend is right and that I should introduce myself as a white peach gin. Anyway, welcome back, fantasy fiction fanatics. It's great to see you again, and I hope you're doing well. And I am excited for today's class. I apologize in advance, as always, for any background noises that may be happening. I have the dogs again today. My roommates are out, so they might bark at anything, literally anything, even if it's nothing, and they might bark. So I apologize in advance if there's any loud barking in the background. And I do have some traffic going by on my street, and sometimes it can get pretty loud. So I also apologize for that. It's a little bit of a busier time than I was hoping to film. But you know, them's the breaks, and we have to continue on. Today's class was mentioned to me by a subscriber who requested it. So today we are doing a character analysis on Lupin from Harry Potter. And hopefully I can do him justice, and hopefully I bring up some good points for you. As always, you're welcome to reach out to me and comment and let me know if you think I missed something, if you think you want to discuss something, you agree, disagree, whatever. As always, I am happy to have a discussion with you and to hear what you think. So, I guess let's go ahead and get started. First things first, I just always start with a basic profile of the character, just for those of you who don't know or haven't read the books in a while. I know that they're very popular books, so most people have read them, but you know, just in case, I do know a couple people who have not read them or watched the movies, and I just wonder if they're living under a rock. And that might very well be possible, that they could be living under a rock. But since I do know that there are some of those weird people out there that don't actually know anything about Harry Potter, I figure it's always best to start with the basics. So Lupin is at one point in the series a professor, but is mainly a werewolf and a wizard in the Harry Potter universe. He teaches Defense Against the Dark Arts when he is at Hogwarts in Harry's third year, and as that professor. And he helps in the effort of destroying Voldemort throughout the books. He is a reoccurring character, even if he is not a main or main secondary character. He also is in the Order of the Phoenix. And I think that's basically the main gist of Lupin for basic profile goes. And yeah, so let's go ahead and get started with traits. Now, before... Sorry. Ooh. They quieted on their own. It's a miracle. Anyway, so because there are books and there are movies versions of Lupin, I kind of do a little bit of a comparison like I did with Dumbledore back when I first started this channel. I have a character analysis on him. I will make sure to link that if you'd like to see it below. But with this one, he's not quite as prominent of a character. Lupin isn't in the movies as much, so I am going to do a little bit of a comparison, but most of this analysis is going to be based off the books. So let's go ahead and start delving in with his traits. I have quite a few listed here. I feel like Lupin is a complicated, complex character despite how he is not one of the main characters. He is very smart, very kind, but he is kind of a loner. He doesn't have a lot of close friends other than the people who are in the Order and such like that. He's very brave, very, very loyal. He's very much of a nurturer as we see when he is teaching at Hogwarts. He's very committed. He takes his responsibilities seriously, and if he says that he's going to do something and commits to something, he is absolutely going to do that. He is very unsure of himself, though, on the other hand. He doesn't have a lot of confidence. He doesn't have a lot of self-pride. He's very unsure and in a lot of ways self-conscious, especially about being a werewolf. Alright, so again, those are the main traits that I thought of for Lupin. You are welcome. More than happy to hear from you down below if you thought I missed anything, or if you feel like I didn't do justice by giving him a trait that he shouldn't have had, or something that is different. And let's go ahead and talk about, before we get into more of his role in the story like I normally do, I really want to talk about him being a werewolf. Because with him being a werewolf, this is something that is very defining, especially with some of his traits. Like I mentioned, with him being a werewolf, it makes him unsure and not very good with confidence. So this is really a defining factor for him, and his traits, his self-esteem, how he handles situations, everything. This is a very, very key factor for him. Now, the way werewolves work in the Harry Potter universe is you're human 1 minute, and then the night of the full moon, once the full moon is high enough in the sky at its zenith, you transform into the werewolf. And you keep none of your human aspects. You don't keep your consciousness, you don't keep your thoughts, you don't have human feelings. You are no longer whoever you are when you're human. So Lupin has no choice but to, 1, become the werewolf every full moon, and 2, unless he drinks a special potion that we find out Snape is brewing for him during Harry's third year at Hogwarts, and he's a teacher. He drinks that potion, and then he can become, when he becomes the werewolf, he can still keep all those human thoughts, feelings, emotions, and just hide in his room, curl up or whatever, and wait out the night. So he does have something to help him, especially when he's older. He has somebody to help brew him things. But if he doesn't have that help, especially probably when he was younger, we learn that he pretty much didn't have any help or any potions that made things easier. So he has no choice but to become a raving monster. It literally has nothing to do with Lupin himself. He doesn't get a choice. He doesn't get to make these decisions. When he's a werewolf, whatever he does are not his decisions. So even though he isn't part of making the decisions that he makes and becoming a monster and, ravaging anybody he sees and killing them, if somebody were to come around him, that was most likely what would happen. Society views him as a monster. We really see that society, and the Harry Potter Society, they don't like werewolves. They don't want them around. They'd rather they didn't exist at all. And even though we only have limited characters like Lupin that are werewolves, and we only get to see a limited portion of it, we really understand that they're unwanted in this society and that they are viewed as monsters. Obviously, you can't tell when you're talking to somebody on the street, just like talking to Lupin, coming up and meeting him for the first time, you wouldn't automatically know, hey, that's a werewolf. But if they were to find out, there would be problems. So society has really dictated to Lupin that he is a monster. Of course, Lupin also feels that way, considering he has no choice but to become a raving monster that can't keep his own thoughts. But because society also deems him as a monster for this condition that he has no hope of getting over, and has no way of helping him other than those potions that he has brewed, which are only able to be made with someone who can brew them and who knows that knowledge, like Snape. So society really digs deep and affects how Lupin sees himself. It really is a contributing factor to all these traits of the self-consciousness that he has, the fear that he is a monster. He really has no good views of himself, and society doesn't help that at all. It makes it worse. That's even why he quits at the end of the year once, he knows that his status as a werewolf has gotten out. He can already tell that all the parents are going to be complaining about having a werewolf at the school, complaining that it's a teacher, complaining that it's unsafe for the kids to be around him. So it's really disheartening to see how horrible society is treating him for something that is not his fault in the slightest, that he has no control over. Instead of trying to help him, they just contribute to the way he's feeling about himself, which is how a lot of times society works on things that people fear or is uncontrollable. So this is a large contributing factor to how he feels about himself and how he feels about being a werewolf. It also gives him a dual nature in the fact that his human side is actually very nice, very passive, even though, yes, he can assert himself. He's not somebody that's a bully or likes to go out and start fights or anything like that. He's a very kind, loving, nurturing person. Sorry, I'll be right. And I'm back. Whew. We will see how long the peace lasts. Anyway, so, as I was saying, dual-natured. So he's got his caring side, his human side, the part that has compassion and care and loves his students and wants to teach and make kids better, and wants to encourage people to feel good about themselves. All these things that he exudes as a human, as just being his true normal self, is the complete opposite of the nature of the werewolf. So when he isn't himself, and he isn't able to have a potion to keep himself as a werewolf, he is completely the opposite. He is out of control, wild, killing at least, animals in the forest if he's in the forest. He could easily kill somebody if he passes by them, and almost, kills Harry and Hermione when they are traveling back in time at trying to protect Sirius from being killed by Lupin. So we really see that this is kind of like a dual nature, or I don't want to say it's a split personality kind of similarity, because it really isn't. It's more of like, the human side of him and like an animalistic side of him. So he's very much a split person at the time of the full moon. So it's always the good guys that finish last, isn't it? Lupin's such a nice person, and of course then he has to feel like he's a monster. But on a brighter note, something that's very important is that because he is a werewolf, he has been shown exactly who is loyal and caring about him. He can say for 100% that his friends love him. Because we hear about the time that Lupin is in school and his friends become animagus. So that way they can be around him when he is a werewolf and he doesn't have to be alone, and they can be safe and not have to worry about Lupin attacking them. And they can go on adventures and escape through the Whomping Willow to the Shrieking Shack and be in a safe place and keep Lupin company. So all of his friends, now later obviously Pettigrew we don't really get to count as much, but when he is in school, he does become an animagus just like Sirius and just like Harry's dad. So James and Sirius and Peter all become animagus and work really, really hard to learn this advanced magic, so that way Lupin can have friends, can feel more confident about himself, can know that he will be taken care of when he is a werewolf, and doesn't have to do it alone. So we really see how loyal and loving his friends are, and he can see how loyal and loving his friends are to him. To know that he does have value, to know that he is somebody that's important enough to go and out of their way to do something to help him and to make sure that he isn't alone in it anymore. Because obviously, since it happened to him very young, he'd been dealing with this for a long time before he ever had James and Sirius and Peter to help him out and to keep him company. So, really shows some dark sides of things and also shows for him some bright sides. So yes, on the whole, it really does suck to be a werewolf, but at least he knows he's got friends who truly loved him and still continue to love him until the end, unfortunately for him. So, yeah, it's pretty defining. It's a pretty big deal for his character, and it really is very sad that society in general does not treat him better and try to help him, instead just throwing him away and deeming him a monster. Okay, let's go ahead and talk about some goals that he has. I've got 3. 2 of them are from book 3, since that is the main story that he is in. And then we have one that I feel like encompasses all the books that he is in. So, the first one is kind of an obvious one. His goal is to teach and guide students, especially Harry, but not just Harry, to teach all of the kids that he has when he is the Defense Against the Dark Arts teacher. This is something that he takes very seriously. He tries his best and oftentimes is very, very good at it. Just as we see with like Neville and the Bogart, he really connects with the students and makes his teachings fun. People enjoy his class. People enjoy going to him, especially if you're comparing him to Snape, who everybody hates and really would rather not go to any of his classes. Obviously, the Slytherins are an exception, but nobody can make the Slytherins happy. Let's just be real, no one can make the Slytherins happy except for Snape. But everybody else really learns a lot, especially Neville and Harry, who obviously Harry is given special training, but Neville really connects with Lupin, and Lupin really explains things in a way that is easier for Neville to understand. And considering Neville is somebody who needs a little bit more help sometimes, that was really, really a big deal for him. So on this goal, through the end of his time at Hogwarts as a teacher, he succeeds. He really succeeds. And for his other goal, he does almost make it. He doesn't 100% keep this goal till the end, but he does do an extremely good job of keeping himself under the radar as a werewolf. That is another one of his main goals in book 3, is to try and make sure that nobody finds out. And he takes his potions really very regularly. He makes sure that they are made and that he takes them. He doesn't, slip up to anybody, and Hermione is the only person that figures it out from Snape trying to basically throw him under the bus and tell everybody without actually telling anybody. So he's very, very good about hiding it. It's only until the very end where, because he hasn't taken his potion and he's trying to help figure out the whole thing with Sirius and Snape and Peter, that things kind of go bad and he full out turns into a werewolf on the grounds, is running around, running amok, and almost hurting Harry or Sirius, one of them. So he does a really good job with this goal, and he almost makes it. He almost makes it to the end of the year with nobody knowing, other than Hermione, who figured it out, because she is, of course, so super smart. But unfortunately, that failed for him, and the whole reason he keeps this goal and is trying to do this goal is, just as we talked about earlier, is that he doesn't want people to find out. He doesn't want the students to be scared of him. He doesn't want the parents to be scared of their kids being taught by him. He doesn't want to bring a bad reputation to Hogwarts. There's so many things that go through his mind where he's just like, nobody can know. I really don't want anybody to know. So unfortunately, this goal is not reached, but he did an excellent job keeping it under wraps for most of the year. And then his third and final goal, which is his biggest one of all and overarches over all the stories from 3 onward that he's in, is to help defeat Voldemort. he is a very active person in the defense against Voldemort and trying to retaliate. He's in the Order of the Phoenix, which is actively fighting and defending against Voldemort. He's even in the final battle at Hogwarts, that though unfortunately he doesn't make it out in the end of that battle, and that is where he makes his last stand. He is immense in helping with actually getting to the point for Harry to be able to face off against Voldemort and win. So we can count his goal a success, though, and reached. Unfortunately, he wasn't able to see the end results of the world that would come based on that goal being reached, which is very sad. Obviously, not everybody could survive, and Lupin was the one that didn't. But at least he was doing what he thought was right and was making a difference, and that is what I think would mean most to Lupin, was reaching that goal and making everything that he was doing worth it. So those are the main goals that I have seen Lupin have during the series. As always, if you think I missed anything, go ahead and let me know down below, or if you think I should have mentioned a bit more, gone in more in depth, or have any questions, as always, let me know, and I'd love to have a discussion with you on it. And let's go ahead and carry on to the next portion of our analysis, which is his role in the story. I've got two main roles in the story. And I mean the story meaning overarching, not necessarily just in book 3, but just overarching the whole role. Why is this character here? What does he, what is the meaning of putting this character into play by J.K. Rowling? What does J.K. Rowling get from putting this character here? The first one is that he's a caretaker. He takes care of the students when he's working at Hogwarts. He's taking care of Harry with the Order of the Phoenix. He is also taking care, obviously, of Hermione and Ron and such when he's in the Order of the Phoenix, as well as when he's at Hogwarts. So he is a caretaker. He is somebody who nurtures, who guides, who really cares about these students, and he puts in all the effort to take care of everybody, to make sure that they're going to be okay, to protect against them, especially Harry. Obviously, there are reasons why Harry is special, and he does give him extra attention, but in general, Lupin is just a caretaker kind of person, and that extends to all of his students, not just Harry. And then the second is that he's a mentor and a teacher. So obviously, you're probably thinking like, oh, but he's not a mentor or a teacher throughout the whole thing. But that's really the active role that J.K. Rowling puts him in here for. And yes, it's mostly in book 3, but in other times too, he does guide Harry and does mentor him. So obviously this mentor and this teacher category is literal at this point, especially in book 3, where he actually is a professor and a teacher and somebody who's guiding students to be better, to know more, to pass on knowledge. So it's an easy classification just on that basis alone, that he is put into this story to teach, to mentor, to help students grow, especially Harry, and especially with knowing how to deal with Dementors. He tries to make learning fun for the students. He really tries to connect with them, to really know how to teach them and make connections that are going to bring them further. Especially see this with Neville. As I mentioned before, he really connects with Neville, who has a hard time learning Defense Against the Dark Arts, as we have seen in previous books and sometimes in later books, that he struggles and needs a little bit more guidance and a little bit more of a different angle in order to make things connect for him. And Lupin really does that and tries his very best to do that for every single student, and to make learning fun and to make magic fun. He also tries to help mentor and teach Harry and Ron and Hermione and such on a personal level. So not just knowledge of magic, not just, passing your school grades, not just how to defeat Voldemort. He also counsels Harry on personal things, on his parents, and trying to help him when he's feeling down about his parents or wanting to know more about them. He tries to teach Harry, about life and being the person that could mentor him and be there for him as a caretaker and as a mentor when Harry needs help with personal problems. It's not just, I'm only your teacher and that's it. No, he tries to make it also on a personal level, on personal feelings, on things about his past, trying to help him grow as a person as well. Now, let's talk about what he brings to the story. As always, it does seem very similar of what his role in the story is and what he brings to the story, and sometimes some characters, they are very intermixed. But this one, I feel like Lupin has really defined, what his role in the story is, and also has some really defined what he brings to the story and what he brings for the characters in that story. So I've got three main things here. The first is a comforting adult presence for Harry. He is somebody who Harry trusts, Harry looks up to, Harry makes a connection with, and is somebody that is a comforting presence that's not just another person his age. Someone who's older than him, wiser than him. Obviously Dumbledore, he has a good connection with Dumbledore, but this is someone he can talk to on a regular basis. Somebody he sees all the time and can be a comforting adult presence for Harry. Someone he can turn to, ask advice, whatever else. So he's got that. Then he also has brings a link to Harry's parents for him. This is the first time he's really actively known somebody who talks to him about his parents and who knew them when he was young. So who was friends with them, truly knows them, actively has a link to Harry's parents, and can relate to Harry because he has this connection, can give more solidity to his parents. It's not just, this big concept that his parents were alive and that his parents were here and that his parents knew people and had friends and did these things. Instead, now he's got somebody who knew them, who interacted with them, who are in these stories telling him about his parents. Obviously, yes, he doesn't tell him everything. Yes, he doesn't, just blabber on and on about Harry's parents, but he is a solid connection to his parents. One of their friends, somebody who they trusted, who they spent time with, who James became an animagus for, who, was a close link, something that really ties Harry to his parents for once. Finally gets some information, finally gets some connection to his parents through Lupin. And 3, we've got an adult friend for Harry. Someone who is on his side, someone who looks out for him, someone who helps him, and like I said before, somebody he can talk to. So it's not like Snape, it's not like McGonagall, it's not even like Dumbledore. Even though Dumbledore is a friendly face and is a connection for an adult connection in a good way, versus Snape, which is an adult connection in a bad way. He's got Harry. Harry has Lupin as almost like a friend, someone he confides in, somebody he talks to his parents about, somebody he says, I'm worried about this, oh, I need to learn this and become stronger, and oh, I'm trying to work with these memories that will help me to fight against a Dementor. So he's got a friend who's an adult who can actually be more in a position to help him than just his two friends of Ron and Hermione, who are limited based on being students as well. Especially when, he has that run-in with Snape in the hallway when he's looking around for Peter Pettigrew, who is roaming the halls, and Snape catches him. Lupin steps in and can guard Harry against Snape and can help him out, and does it on a friend basis. Obviously, yes, at the end of that conversation, he does kind of pull the teacher card and take the map. But that is for reasons that we don't yet know in that moment. But for the most part, he is somebody he can turn to, someone he can talk to, someone he can relate to, and who steps in and helps him, and can be in an adult role that is also a friendship role. So something that contributes to Harry and gives another layer of what he can get away with, I guess you could say, or more help on a level that is not just, two other kids that could be easily reprimanded as well. Okay, now, last but not least, let's go ahead and talk just a little bit about his role in the movies. So all of that we just talked about were all things mostly oriented around the books. Because, as I mentioned before, role is not as big in the movies. In fact, number 3 is the only one where he truly has a strong presence, because he has such a strong presence in the book that they had to have him as a strong presence in the movie. But there are several moments in later books that he plays more of an active role or has bigger part in that is not seen in the movie because of time elements. They no longer see him as a truly important character in a lot of scenes, or somebody who, they absolutely need in order to have things make sense, like they did in number 3. So he becomes more of a sub-role. We do see him occasionally. We do have some parts that, are actually active for him. But there are also many other characters that have a much bigger role in the books that are given a less role. For example, his wife, Tonks, is much less of a role in all of the movies versus the book. The book, she is much more known, much more connected with. We do really get to see her, know more about her relationship with Lupin, versus the movies where she's practically not in them. And it's a very interesting dynamic on that point. But getting back to Lupin, our topic here. Overall, Lupin, yes, like I said, has a much smaller role, so he doesn't have as much build up on the later books, later movies. But he has a very similar presence as book 3 and movie 3. So his betrayal is very, very similar. He has very similar traits. He is portrayed really, really well with the kind of person who he's supposed to be. As far as his werewolf nature, that is really portrayed really well. He's got the duality that happens at the end of movie 3. So we really see a strong representation of who Lupin is, what he struggles with, the role he's trying to do with Harry, to interact with Harry. It's all very similarly portrayed from books to movie. I wouldn't say that there's a lot of like, oh, well, really, he's like this, or he's like this. For example, in the Dumbledore character analysis that I did, I really had much more of a strong divide between this is how he is in the books and this is how he is in the movies. It's much more of a debate of like, okay, this is this way and this is this way, and they changed him like this. For Lupin, we're pretty much, especially for number 3, what you see in the book is very similar to what you get in the movie. Obviously, nothing is perfect because movies are not books and they cannot be the exact same, but they have a very good, strong portrayal, in my opinion, of Lupin in the movies. Of course, I would love to have seen him more in the movies, given him more of the active role that he does have in the books. I feel like, he kind of gets thrown by the wayside, even though he's a really good character. But technically, yes, on a lot of those scenes, the reason they could cut him out was because it wasn't necessary to have those scenes and have that same development, that same dedication to his character, and still you can have the story just fine. It still continues on as the way it goes. So yeah, it's really interesting to see how much we get of him in number 3, and then the little snippets that you get in the other movies. I do think, like I just said, that if he had a stronger role that he does have in the books, in the movies, that we would continue to see a very good correlation between who he was set up in book in movie 3 and later. I think they could have portrayed him really super well. But time constraints and all that, right? But anyway, overall, I love Lupin as a character. He's one of my favorites in all of the Harry Potter series. I think he is just a wonderful person, and I feel bad that he's had such a hard life. Being a werewolf has really made life hard for him, and of course it had to happen to him when he was young, and then he had to bear the rest of his life with that burden, and to be so unsure that he didn't even know if he could marry Tonks because of being a werewolf and because of having a child or a family with her, how that could look upon her. He even has a hard time with just having, the Weasleys and the Order as friends because he's worried about how that will look to society for him being involved with them. So he's such a great, wonderful person that really gets dumped on, and it's really too bad that he had that life. But in the end, he succeeded in trying to help the good side beat the evil side. And unfortunately, he didn't get to see his son grow up, but he did get to have a wife that he loved, and to know that he had a son, and to be happy and hopeful for his son's future. Okay. That's everything I've got on my notes for Lupin. I hope I did an okay job, especially for the subscriber who initially asked for it. Please let me know any comments, questions, concerns, anything that you would like to know, or anything that I didn't cover, anything that you feel like I did wrong or I said wrong. I would love, love, love to have a discussion with you either down below, or you can contact me on Twitter, which is at fantasyfiction1. And now I have a Facebook page up. So if you don't have Twitter, for those of you who never really contacted me on there or followed me on there because you don't have one or didn't want to make one, I now have the option of Facebook, which is also Fantasy Fiction 1. I made it the same to make it easy. So hopefully you guys check me out on there, or comment or contact me on there as well if that's better for you than doing it down below. I also have a blog and website, which is fantasyfictionfanatics.net, which you are welcome to check out. I do a whole bunch of posts of reviews, which I just put one up yesterday, a new review, book review. I do all kinds of recommendations and talking about fantasy, some more, on different topics, stuff like that. I've got all kinds of different content on there. Now I've really got it going, some good, strong amount of content going on there, and I've been doing well on getting something out for you every week on there as well. You can contact me on there or by emailing, whatever is good for you. There's plenty of options to reach me if you'd like to have a discussion, if you have any thing that you want to see on either my channel or my blog. You're always welcome to contact me and let me know, and I will get to any requests as soon as I possibly can, because I would really like to make content that you would like to see. So yeah, thanks so much for joining me today, and I hope you have a wonderful day. Thanks for enduring the dogs barking in the background. I hope they didn't bother you too much, and I will see you in the next class. Bye.